Welcome, Super Dungeon Explorers, to the Wave 2 unboxing video. Here I have everything that was available in the blacksmith items, which is the optional purchases that you could get with the Kickstarter. Here is what's called the Super Combo A. So it's everything besides what was available in the Always Super box. So I've got all the extra heroes, all the extra warbands, and the extra tiles. So let's open each of these up one by one, and I'll briefly go over what's inside each of these boxes. So the first thing I'm going to open up are the individual hero boxes here. We have the Tabby Brook Mage and the Twilight Knight. Now we've already seen the Twilight Knight in one of the updates, but here we have her final card and model. So inside these individual boxes you'll just have just the hero and the card itself. Just to show you what was inside, a whole lot of nothing. That's where the model was, and then the card was on the inside. So here we have the model, and I do like how these new models are casted because it really shows off the chibi art style and lets me as a painter get to this a lot easier so I can get at the details. So she's nice, and of course the plastic is a little bendier than most. But let's see the Twilight Knight here. A human hero with fair strength and fair stats, but she also lets her dexterity be her defensive stat. So that's a possibility of which way you want to build her. She has the ability Feint, which means that when a model with Feint makes an offensive action, they can choose one dice from the target's defense roll and force them to re-roll that result. And in arcade mode, anytime a hero with Feint attacks a monster, they simply reduce their defense by 1 star. So that's pretty handy in arcade mode. Her offensive action is Piercing Blade. It's a strength attack, Lance 2, so it'll go straight 2 squares. And her support action is Gloom Shatter. It's dangerous, so it'll affect allies and enemies, and it's an aura 2 around her character. And it says that she will reduce the offense rolls made in the aura by 1 star. Twilight Knight is not affected by Gloom Shatter, so that makes me think that this character does well by herself. She can go off into the forefront by herself, activate Gloom Shatter, so that when enemies kind of surround her and she doesn't have her allies around her, she can be fine by herself. And her potion is Lamplight. It's wave 5 and it destroys all traps and creeps. That's interesting. That's a mechanic that I didn't think they'd do something like that. That's very interesting because it means that any traps, she's definitely more of like the scouting kind of hero. She'll go up in the front to a new tile, reveal it, it'll probably be a trap or a creep, and then she'll just destroy it. And when she gets attacked that subsequent turn, she has Gloom Shatter to protect her. Of course, that's if you activate it. So Twilight Knight is interesting. I definitely like this character. Next one we have here is the Tabby Brook Mage. Again, I've already opened this, so we'll have the card and the model. Now this Tabby Brook here is a very nice model, and I do like the cat girl. I'm a fan, but she's also kind of bigger than the other models here. And these newer models are already bigger than the original models. If I were to take, for instance, this Ranger here, significantly bigger. So let's see what the Tabby Brook is good at. She has blue stats all around, but she also can use her armor or her dexterity as a defensive role. And she's a magic user, so she's got that magic 8 range 3 blue will attack. Now her special attacks, her special abilities are Puddle Jump. It's a wave 1 push 1, so she can push the people that try to surround her. She's got Refreshing Rain, which is a heal 2 wave 2 that affects allies. So wave 2 around her. Actually, wave is a different sort of AoE, where aura is around her and wave is something else. Actually, never mind. Wave and aura are the same, except that aura stays while wave happens instantly. So her potions are both offensive. She's got Volcanic Spring, which is dangerous, which means it affects allies as well. So you're going to want allies to be out of the way of this attack. It's a magic attack, so it'll use her will. Lance 8, so it's straight in one of 4 directions, up, down, left, or right, in 8 squares, and it causes fire. And then Arctic Spring is the same thing, except that causes ice. So that's interesting. I imagine she's an interesting support character to have around, but she can also deal damage. However, she can have 2 potions here, although because she's not a potion master, she can't use them both on her turn. But I imagine you could have her use one of her potions on her turn, and then an ally in a subsequent turn could use the other potion. So you could cause one enemy to have fire and ice on them. And fire, as we both know, or as we all know, deals damage to a monster once they activate during their upkeep. So it's very useful against those trolls that keep regenerating, or against anything really that has more than 1 health, or something that you just want to stop before it gets to use its turn to activate. And then ice means that they can't use their unique actions. Also super useful. Now the Tabby Brook Mage's passive ability is 9 lives. It's a 1-use only ability. When a model with 9 lives is destroyed, immediately roll 1 red dice. Remove 1 wound token for every star rolled. If no stars are rolled, then the model is destroyed as normal. So she gets a second chance if she ever was to fall. Which is useful too, because you don't want the healer to die. That's just a given. So the Tabby Brook Mage has an interesting balance between supportive and offensive. Next we have here Sir Snapdraw, who wasn't originally in the Kickstarter, but was revealed at a convention afterwards. And then they said, hey, you know what? We're putting this to all the Kickstarter backers because we love you guys. Thanks Soda Pop Miniatures, thanks Ninja Division. So Sir Snapdraw here, we got the card in the original Super Dungeon Explorer Wave 1, but with the box here we have a couple little extra stuff. So here we have Sir Snapdraw as a hero, and he's called the Wormclaw Exemplar. And as a mini boss, he's Sir Snapdraw. So of course we'll have the arcade variant as well. And he has a treasure card. That's +2 armor and makes you immune to knockback, or knockdown. So that's pretty neat. And I do like his model a lot, because it's very cartoon, if that makes any sense. You can see the the detail in his armor, where his belts are. It's all very accentuated. So this guy will also be a lot of fun to paint. And look, his shield is the same one that's here on the treasure, except that this one's a little shorter and stubbier while this one is longer. But that's inconsequential. So let's take a quick look at the Wormclaw. His strength is 3 blue, and he's got 2 blue, 1 red for armor, 1 blue, 1 red for will, 1 blue, 1 red for dexterity. So he's definitely a well-rounded character, to say the least. He's immune to knockdown, and his special attack is Burning Blade. It's a strength attack, sweep 1. It adds 1 red dice to strength and causes fire. So he is gonna just go in and just sweep and cause fire to just start going everywhere. But of course, that's as a hero. His other hero abilities, his support action is High Tower. It's an aura 3, so it stays around him until he activates again, and it will give everyone +1 armor and immunity to knockdown. So he's also pretty supportive. And his potion is the Portcullis potion. You place a token next to any doorway. The next monster to move through that doorway suffers an offensive roll equal to the exemplar's current strength. Then remove the token. Whoa. Let me reread that again. The next monster to move through that doorway suffers an offensive roll equal to the exemplar's current strength. What does that mean? Then remove the token. Does that mean he makes like a free attack? It seems like, yeah, he would make a free attack against one monster that were to move through a doorway. So that brings an interesting element of strategy, where you were to activate this potion, because it's a support potion, which means it can only be activated during the player turn. It can't be used as an emergency potion, which I think it would be more useful in that way, but I guess that's where the strategy comes in. So you would use that, I guess. Here's one option of using it. You are on a tile, you destroy the spawn point, you spawn the mini boss, then you run off that tile. Pop the potion, and when the mini boss tries to go through, you get him with the weird attack. But that seems like a lot of work to go through for one thing like that. So maybe it's just a good way to kind of, as a sort of an incidental, lessen the burden of monsters coming in from the other tiles. Although it's only one monster, so if you're fighting against a console player, then he will choose which monster will go and take that hit. But if you're outsmarting the AI in arcade mode, there are possibilities there, because mini bosses will go first, but then it's the creeps. Or no, first are creeps, then the mini bosses, then the elites. So hopefully the elite will go through first, get hit, get defeated, and then from there you kind of have free reign. So that's the Wormclaw Exemplar as a hero. Let's look at him real quick as a mini boss. He's got similar stats, except his armor as a mini boss is 3 red, so he is going to be tough to take down. And he's got almost the exact same abilities as his hero counterpart, except that his sweeping fire has been upgraded to sweep 3, and instead of +1 red dice, it's going to be +1 straight star and still causes fire. His new ability as a mini boss is Rally Cry. It affects his allies. It's a wave 5 and it pulls 4. So this is the classic mode card. I imagine a good way to use this is to pull some of the lagging monsters that are behind him towards him, and therefore closer to your enemies. So that's really interesting. And then his arcade variant loses that ability, but still has the same Blazing Blade, Sweeper, and High Tower becomes his signature ability. So he'll be using that a lot more often, which will make the monsters around him a lot more tougher. So those are all the mini boxes here that just have the single hero, except we also have the Deep Root Wolf Rider. Now this I didn't open. So let's open this guy real quick. So here we have Wolf Rider. Another lovely miniature with a very nice wolf accentuated features, and you have the Wolf Rider on top. So this is very interesting. I'm always interested to find the mechanics of the larger based heroes. So let's see what this guy has in store for us. Cards here inside this plastic that you have to cut. So that's why I made it easier at the other three. But here we have the Deep Root Wolf Rider. He's got 8 movement points and 3 action points. 8 is higher than the standard, I believe, 6 of the other heroes. Whereas Snapdraw actually had 7, so he's a little faster. And this Wolf Rider has 8, so he's even faster than that. The strength is 2 blue, 1 red, his armor is 3 blue, his will is 3 blue, his dexterity is 3 blue, and he has a dexterity attack that's only range 4. So while he can shoot with a bow, it's not as far as some of the other snipers out there like the Emerald Ranger. However, he's got 6 health and Surefoot. Surefoot's to be expected with these larger base models, and especially since it is a Wolf Rider, so you know, he's climbing all over everything and doesn't really care. 2 of his 2 unique actions are both offensive. One is Harass. It's still range 4 dexterity, and it causes slow and knockdown. So yeah, I can imagine that to be pretty harassing. Harassable? I can imagine that's pretty annoying against an enemy. And then he also has Wolf Spirit. It's a strength attack. +1 red dice to his strength and pounce. So it'll give him some extra mobility. But this one, I don't know. I'm having a hard time seeing where he's most useful. Whereas, you know, other characters are very clearly dexterity, strength, this, that, or the other. And his potion is Glimmerberry Juice. It's an emergency potion. It has a range of 6, and it says drink immediately after an offensive roll has been made. Target enemy model must reroll all dice from their last offensive roll. So, I mean, that's a pretty good emergency potion if I ever did see one. If a boss or a mini boss is trying to take down a hero, pop it. Just like that. And hopefully they don't roll you as hard as they did before. But yeah, I see the conflict here where he has Harass as his dexterity and then Wolf Spirit as a strength attack. So he's really split amongst the two. And it's hard for me to see where exactly his strengths lie, although I guess that's where the flexibility is, right? Where you have all the strength weapons already equipped to the warrior, and now you keep on drawing strength cards. Who are you going to give it to? Well, incidentally, if no one else wants to take it, you could give it to the Wolf Rider, because he can use strength and dexterity, so he's got a little bit of versatility. And I mean, come on, this model is pretty awesome, so seeing this on the board, I'm not complaining. Next up, we're going to open the Emerald Valley Warband. This is quite a bigger box. The original Kickstarter Wave 1 gave you the Mistborn Coast Warband, where each of these warbands will give you one spawn, that's, you know, thematic of course. This one's going to be mushroom themed, one hero, and one mini boss. except for a certain warband that we all know if we've been reading the updates, if you know what I'm talking about. And you know what? I kind of like this box too, just like the box design where they have the little preview here. Here's the hero. Here's one of the monsters. It's nice. I kind of wish that the first wave Kickstarter kind of gave us this box for the Mistborn Coast, because I'm more than likely gonna keep these. Kind of have them somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I'm a pack rat. I also just like to collect things. Alright. So, ooh. Here we're gonna have all the cards. Here we have the two lovely models. Here's our hero, the Silver Chevalier. And unfortunately her little pike is bending. But she looks interesting. She's got a little shield. She's got the ties in her hairs and a nice detail on around her character. I like it. Let's see in size comparison to the Twilight Knight. Yeah, she's about the same size as that. Alright. And here's one of the mushrooms. And the plastic on this feels different. But yeah, look at that. He is super awesome. Look at that detail and the little cord around him. And they're like wrecking balls. Let's see what these other guys look like. Uh-oh. Again, we have more mushroom people. We have some little pigs. Some little mushroom people. Here's probably the spawn. It's like a Trent with the mushrooms growing out of it. Super nice. Very cute. It's a double spawn. Here are two of them. Alright, I thought these were all going to be single spawns, but here we have a new double spawn. And you know what? Let's find out what this spawn is called. And of course, here we have the Glimmer Dusk Dragon. Alright. So, here we have the Silver Chevalier. She's got melee range 2. You could have expected that because she has the pike. It's 2 blue, 1 red. Her armor is 2 red, so she's pretty beefy, although she has no special ability. Her special attack, or she has no passive ability, her special attack is Silver Star. It's a melee cross 3. So that means it's gonna kind of be around her like this, and it'll attack all of those creatures. Just like that. 1, 2, 3, just like that. And it's just relying completely on her strength. No modifiers. Her next ability is Silver Lance. It's melee. +1 red dice to strength, and it's pounce. So she's got a little bit of mobility as well. So that's interesting. Her potion is an emergency potion, Quicksilver Elixir. It affects allies. Drink immediately after a defensive roll has been made. Reroll all dice from the last defensive roll. So it's exactly the opposite of the Wolf Rider here. Well, the Wolf Rider was for offense. The Quicksilver Elixir is for defense. What's also interesting, here we have the Wolf Rider's potion, which I mentioned earlier. It's a range 6. So this kind of affects the enemy within that range. So that means if, let's say, an enemy was shooting a missile or shooting magic from range 6, or I mean beyond range 6, that potion wouldn't affect it because it's too far away. But this Quicksilver Elixir is more effective in the sense that only the hero who's getting attacked has to drink the potion. But here you kind of have to worry about being within range of the enemy making the attack. So that, again, that kind of puts Deep Root down on my list, even though I really wanted him to be awesome. And it might be a girl. Wolf Riders, no, it is elf hero. It doesn't say anything otherwise. So boy or girl, it's androgynous. So the Quicksilver Elixir is a more surefire way to get a defensive roll. And of course Pounce is for the mobility. And she also has the reach with her basic attack, and the cross 3 is none too shabby. Alright, so here we have Telomer Wing, the fairy dragon mini boss. We've all seen a few previews of this guy already, and we all kind of saw him as our answer to Ninja Cola, but let's see what the final result here is. Range 2 melee strength, 2 red dice. Armor is 2 static, 1 red. He has a magic attack, range 6, 3 red dice for will, and dexterity is 3 blue dice. He's immune to Bane and Hex, so that means his offensive rolls and his defensive rolls cannot be modified. He has Fly, so he's going to be zooming across the field and does not care about any sort of terrain, but that means he's also vulnerable in the air. It means that he can't necessarily hide behind walls, so you can always kind of have a shot at him. And he only has 5 health, so that's pretty low for a mini boss of this caliber so far that I'm seeing, so he might go down quicker than most. His offensive action is Breath of Dream. It's Lance 6 and it causes slow, and it uses his magic attribute. As a support action here, Verdant Maze. It's a range of 6, will versus will, and it will compel 6, so he's gonna pull somebody close to him. His next support action is Fey Curse. Range of 6, will versus will, and causes Bane and Hex, so he will debilitate somebody. That's pretty dangerous, seeing as will is his strongest attribute. And again, this is the classic mode, so if you're a good console, you're gonna target the character with the lowest will and debilitate them, because the character with the lowest will is probably the character with the highest strength or armor, therefore making that character neutered, essentially. The arcade variant is very similar in that sense, where it still has Fey Curse. And Breath of Dream is a Lance 8 slow still, and of course a defensive action, so it will cause damage. So there we have the Glimmer Dusk, Fairy Dragon. So the spawn here is Fungal Growth. It's actually not a dual spawn, it's a single spawn, but you have 2 of them. So with 1 Fungal Growth, you have the spawn, you have the OCO Shroom, you have 2 Truffle Pigs, and you have 4 Kino Shrooms. And that makes up 1 spawn. So that means the second spawn will also have that for itself. So now this isn't a dual spawn that you've got, it's now a single spawn. So that means these guys must be pretty beefy for it to just have this few number. The OCO Shroom is soporific and spongy, which means what? Soporific. When a model with soporific is destroyed, the model that destroyed it suffers slow. Wow, that's pretty good. I mean, because slow is not an ability that you see a lot of, but if these guys just cause it to their defeaters, or to whoever defeated them, then that might get pretty annoying. And then you're gonna have to start spending hearts or healings or whatever it is to get rid of that. Because getting your movement cut in half, rounded up, sucks. They also have Spongy. When a model with Spongy is targeted, push the model that target them 1 square after the action has been resolved, even if the model with Spongy was destroyed. When a model with Spongy is targeted, I understand that because let's say, you know, here we have the melee guy going up to try and whack this OCO Shroom, smack him, and they kind of bounce back. But how does that make sense with the magic person shooting from range, shooting them, and the magic person still bouncing back? It's interesting. I mean, well, okay, well, it doesn't have to make sense, but that's what happens. So their abilities here, Whirling Shiitake, I guess you know what that means. It's a strength attack, wave 1, so he's just gonna, whoo, just like that, spin his little wrecking balls and hit everybody around him. And then Temperamental Toadstool. Wow. It affects himself, and it'll give him backlash, and his armor is already 1 static plus 2 blue. And it's only 1 action, and these OCO Shrooms have 3 actions, so essentially they can go to the middle of a group of heroes, activate backlash, Whirling Shiitake once or twice, and then just sit there while everyone else tries to hit them, and then they're bouncing back and maybe getting backlash. So the Kino Shroom also are soporific and spongy, so that they'll cause slow to whoever kills them, and they'll push them back. And they also have Bounce, which is a range 1, so it's somebody that's directly next to them. And they have Push 1, so boop, push you into, and these are the classic mode. So that means these guys are going to be pushing people into dangerous terrain. So that's an interesting concept. And then they have an offensive action that's using their strength, and it still pushes 1. So either they can attack you, deal damage, and push you, or if they think, oh, I'm not going to be able to hurt you, no way, with 3 blue dice, and you've got so much armor, I'm still going to push you. And they only have 1 health and 1 skull worth, and they have no armor, so, you know, that's the kind of trade-off. But that's definitely interesting. I imagine these guys to be a lot of fun in a very dangerous setting. And they're just pushing everyone into brambles or fire to whatever, right? That's interesting. So you have 4 of these little Kino Shrooms in 1 spawn. And then you have the Truffle Pig, who's got pretty beefy strength. 2 red dice for strength. His armor is 1 static, standard, you know, for spawns like this. 3 blue will, 2 blue dex, 2 health, and he's 2 skulls worth. And his ability is Tusker. It's a strength attack that adds +1 strength, +1 red dice to his strength, and it causes knockdown. Okay, it's pretty standard. And then his special ability here is Funky Fungus Sniffer. You spawn a Kino Shroom from the spawning pool adjacent to the Truffle Pig. So that's interesting. He's got 2 action points, so he's either going to use that and that'll be his turn, but at least that spawns a new thing. And if you kind of are tactical about it, depending on how like the map is laid out, you could have him sort of blocking a doorway that you need, like that the heroes need, and you'll spawn a Kino Shroom in front of him, which will hopefully, you know, block line of sight and all that kind of good stuff. Of course, line of sight isn't blocking that way, but, you know, it'll block a melee guy trying to go in, and which will attack that, and because it's spongy, they will just bounce back. So that's an interesting concept. These definitely seem like interesting characters, although Truffle Pig is the more docile of this spawn, whereas the other guys seem like they would be a lot of fun to like just mess with heroes, and the Truffle Pig's a little more tame. You know, you need some order in this chaos. And of course, here is the arcade versions of those cards. So I imagine they still have the same sort of abilities. So here we have the Shimmering Robes, which is Glimmerwing's treasure card, and it gives +2 to dexterity and stealth. So whenever somebody's targeting a model with stealth, you reduce their range by 3 to a minimum of 1. So it makes it harder for them to get hit by ranged attacks. But it also gives you this special ability, Verdant Dream, which is the same range 6 will versus will compel 6 ability that Glimmerwing has. So it's not that amazing, but I mean, you could always use more dex items, although it's not that great comparatively. So I don't know. I don't think this treasure is going to see too much action, to be honest. But it's still an interesting one, because it requires Glimmerwing to be into the pool. But anywho, that's the Emerald Valley spawn. comes with the Silver Chevalier, 2 of these mushroom spawns, and Glimmer Wing. These mushrooms do seem like a lot of fun. I might like them a little more than the turtles, and I do like turtles.